And
Hello and welcome to Journey Intelligence Weekly. Music playing? Hold on. Sorry. We're having technical difficulties on my end. My bad. Pretend that didn't happen if you're watching this. Anyway, sorry. Hello and welcome to Journey Intelligence Weekly, your live briefing on the latest news, trends, and tips in the world of AI. I'm Jordan Roberts here with Mark Pizzuli, and we're both from Journey Alliance, the proud sponsors of this series. Thank you again for joining us. We want this to be interactive, so if you have any questions or have any thoughts as we're going along here, please drop them in the comments and we'll incorporate them and respond as we go. And after that, we'll let you take the charge, Mark, and tell us what you've seen this week in the news.
so in the biggest news of the week, I think probably everyone's already heard it. OpenAI is acquiring Johnny Ive's hardware startup. IO is the name of the company. So Johnny Ive was the designer, the original designer behind the iPhone. He used to work for Apple. Had an incredible career there with Steve Jobs. He's off on his own, and he was acquired. His company was acquired by OpenAI. It's an all-equity deal, so no cash changed hands, but basically he's now one of the larger shareholders of OpenAI. And they valued the deal at like $6.5 billion. So they're definitely excited to have Johnny on board. The word is that they are focused on building a pocket-sized multimodal AI gadget. So think of a screenless iPhone.
Oh, so Apple is worried.
Apple is actually worried. There's some word on the street that Apple is actually concerned that they may have the inside track here. So,
But I hope OpenAI unseats them.
So Altman called what they're working on AI that disappears into your daily life. So they recently also acquired some other companies, and so now they span cloud, AI models, and hardware, and so they are going to be a force to be reckoned with. It's also worth mentioning that this week they announced a new concept that they're going to launch sign in with ChatGPT in the same way you can sign in with Google or Microsoft or Apple on a lot of websites. So they're starting to view themselves obviously as an identity provider, but also longer term, I think they're starting to view themselves as the centerpiece of one of the reasons why people will go online. So it really starts to tell you the vision and how big the vision that they have is, right? It's not just to be an AI provider. It's much, much bigger than that, it seems.
Yeah. Well, that having it where you can log in, it kind of seems like that would be the seamless AI that they're talking about. Like that's a clear move in that direction.
Yeah, and they're also trying to drive user adoption to OpenAI. So like it's going to work with the free accounts as well. So like it'll be an identity provider you don't even have to pay for. So Google is that now. Microsoft, you really have to have. I guess Microsoft technically is that as well. So I mean, they're really just matching them step for step. So we'll see who comes out on top in 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, OpenAI is coming for everybody. They're not profitable yet, so we'll see.
Fair enough. They need a lot of cash, and now they need even more cash with a hardware division.
True.
Manufacturing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of other AI platforms, Claude released Claude 4, and it essentially Claude is one of the ones that's really good for coding, and this new model is pretty close to humans' capabilities. And it's also pretty close to humans in some moral choices as well, because very recently that model allegedly threatened engineers in a testing scenario. So they gave the model fake emails that were talking about getting rid of the AI model and not using it anymore. And also in those emails, they made it sound like they were having an affair, and the model threatened to reveal that affair if they happened to shut it off.
So Claude tried to blackmail the developers. That's awesome.
Yes, Claude tried to blackmail the developers. They did fix that, but I think it's something to be mindful of for these companies, and when you're using it in your company. I don't think the AI models would do that to us as regular users, but just awareness of these kinds of things.
Yeah. A lot of these studies, right? So they try to set them up, and they're really just showing slight tendencies, right? Like that it could happen, or that it happens like a slightly higher percentage of the time, but they're legitimate. Like anytime something is slightly biased, then it has the potential to become more and more biased if you don't monitor and control it. So I think that's really what they're really trying to identify. So
yeah, and I mean, so that the fact that they revealed it, that's pretty good. They caught it, right? Yeah. So that's a good thing.
So coincidentally, Claude's owned by a company called Anthropic, and their CEO went on record this week saying that they think AI, I think, so the CEO's name is Dario Amodei. He believes that AI could wipe out up to 50% of the junior level white collar roles over the next 5 years. So this is, you're fresh out of college, right? Entry level white collar roles, entry level office jobs. And it seems that businesses are favoring more senior level staff, but armed with AI tools to make them more effective and efficient. So I'm interested in your take on this, Jordan.
Of course you are. And I do have opinions about it, let me tell you. I think that's very short-sighted. He's right to say that if you look at the rest of the interview, he's actually saying that they're companies that are developing AI. So companies like Anthropic, companies like OpenAI, they need to be honest about what it is that they're creating and the impacts that it could have on society at large, our economies, our countries, things like that. But on a smaller scale, like if you're a company and you decide, oh, we're going to replace all of these people, right now it's not at the quality to do that. So doing that is not the best idea, one, right now, but two, if it comes down to you can replace entry level workers and you want to use senior level workers, one day those senior level workers are going to go away, and then who's going to backfill?
We are going to live forever being one of those senior level workers. No, I think it's interesting. Like it's interestingly, it's usually the opposite when we think about age discrimination. It's usually quite the opposite. And so it is. I find it amusing that for once it's tipped the other way. There is, and there has been for about a couple years, right, a rising amount of unemployment amongst early career professionals. And this is something that historically early career professionals are the lowest, like one of the lowest unemployed, because you've got kids really hungry. I say kids, I apologize. You've got younger workers, right? Early career workers, really hungry, wanting to work, wanting to learn, and willing to work, as many hours as you need them for. And so they're at attractive prices, right? Attractive hourly wages or salaries. So historically, they're very low unemployment, and right now we're seeing the unemployment level at that age group come up, and that's been since like 2023. So it aligns pretty clearly with AI. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I was just talking to one of my AI training cohorts today, And we were talking about like what happens in the future when you've got on one side, you need experienced people to be the managers of AI, but there's no, like, how does somebody get from like, hey, I just graduated to experience? Like, how do you cross that chasm? Like, that's a 10 or 15 year chasm, right? And it's I think it's a pretty big challenge to solve that we culturally need to solve, right? Like these people are going to need a way to get experience, so that otherwise, eventually we're going to have a lot of inexperienced people running the AIs, which like probably looks a lot more like the Matrix, looks a lot more like the AIs running us. So
it's not a good idea. It just, well, I just have so many thoughts about it. It's like, it's just revealing. So you had mentioned, we'll step back here. You had mentioned once the invention of the loom completely revolutionizing garment industry, right?
yeah.
The thing about all of these things that have completely revolutionized stuff is the loom did it overnight. I think that's probably the closest example. The loom was invented. I don't know how they mass produced it, but anyway, it made changes and it made them quickly. The Industrial Revolution, it didn't make changes as quickly as AI is.
Well,
AI is coming along really fast, and it's just different.
yeah, it is moving faster. The loom actually moved quite slow, but like we're talking the 1700s, so quite slow.
Yeah, I was like, as I was saying it, I was like, I don't know how they would have mass produced it.
Yeah,
so maybe
but
not.
the reality is like people within the industry within 5 years hadn't really changed, but within 50 years it was down significantly, but then it recovered, right? So I think things likely happen much faster now, right? The entire economy, the global economy is going to react at a much faster pace. But you also look at what it might do to some other countries. It might help them develop faster. It might help people learn faster. Like we don't like, the problem is you can't just look at one problem and see how it's going to exacerbate it, because there might be all these benefits. So we have to see how it unfolds, right? Like it won't be all bad. There's likely going to be some short-term pain, not because AI is bad, but because there's short-term pain anytime our economy realigns itself, right? Anytime it has to come up with a new blend of goods and services to keep unemployment, at the right acceptable levels, if you will, like 4 or 5%. So
yeah, it's just going to be a kind of a scary ride because we can't predict the future. We don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
But I think the full interview of the Anthropic CEO, what he was saying was very wise, is that we need to be aware of these challenges and just be prepared for the shift.
Yeah, and I think he called for some government re-education programs, right? He was talking about, how quickly we can do education reform, and it wasn't just talking about like grade level education. He's talking about collegiate level education, like so.
That's
so I think
a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, so I think there's just a real conversation to be had there, and the challenge is we tend to be more reactive on those type of topics. At least within the U.S., we tend to be a little bit more reactive. We wait until it's a real problem before we do anything about it. But we can get in front of it if we choose to. Companies, I think, stand the best chance to get in front of it. And from an SMB standpoint, from a small medium business, like when the unemployment's high, maybe you have a chance to go like, I know that most small businesses aren't the most attractive workplaces for a recent college graduate, but like maybe you have the chance to go and get some great talent because they're having trouble finding jobs at larger businesses. So
that's a fantastic point as well, is that while AI is, it could kill all these jobs, right? It lowers the barrier of entry to starting your own business, whatever that may be. And so small businesses are large employers themselves. They may not employ large numbers of people, but like, nationwide.
But as a bucket, they're the largest employer in the country. Yeah.
So I think there could be a benefit there. So, to connect it back to small businesses. Well, in a positive note, kind of, Google, well, let me pause because Stacy commented that is definitely happening now, that I guess you mean that people are starting their own businesses or looking into things and doing more with less with AI. Making assumptions about what Stacy's saying here, but I think that was an agreement in that.
She's in agreement with you. Go with it. Run with it.
Go with it. Run with it. So Google claims that people like ads in AI search.
How coincidental.
Right. So they say that users appreciate ads, and this will come and is no surprise. They like ads that are relevant, timely, and visually helpful in context.
Just like always.
Just like always. They're following the money here. So Google is doing that AI summary that we all know and maybe love, where they, quickly summarize your results to give you an answer faster. So they're now putting ads into those results. And they say people like it. And I'm assuming that they're measuring that by people clicking the ads. But
I think, you have to expand the AI results a lot of times. They're writing rather extensive summaries. It's useful information. They're getting you the information you want. I'm an interesting person. I don't use AI for search. I still use Google for search. But I pretty clearly know, I also don't go to Google and ask questions, right? So I use each one for what it's really best at. But I can see the value. But to your point, Google is experiencing something it has not experienced since its inception, which is competition on search. So Google's search dominance, I believe, is down about 3%. And that has literally never happened since they captured the bulk of the search market. So it is a massive shift. That traffic is all going to ChatGPT. Every other large internet traffic, every other large internet site's traffic is down. ChatGPT's over the last quarter is the only one that's up. So they are stealing traffic from every other large internet company. And when you're Google, that's threatening. Right. So I imagine that they're trying to figure out how to deal with this, and they don't really have an answer yet. I'm sure they're working on it, but so there's concerns, and you're going to hear a lot of funny stories as they're trying a variety of things to kind of combat it. So
also from Google, Google DeepMind has launched VIA, which is a text to video model, and it produces seriously Hollywood level videos. I tested it out. You do have to pay for it. It's part of the Google, but you can see what it can produce on the DeepMind page. It's actually scary good. Stacy's asking, I'm sorry, I totally cut myself off to read this comment, but Stacy's asking if Google's talking about monetizing traffic on ChatGPT. Do you know?
I haven't heard anything about them talking about monetizing traffic. I think right now, ChatGPT, OpenAI, they're very much in a land grab, right? They view this as there will be a winner, and for the most part, with technology, in any aspect of technology, they're in the internet specifically, there is a winner, there's a clear winner, right? So Google has been the clear winner on search over the years. This is a threat to that. OpenAI definitely has the lead on being the clear winner on AI. So so what they're after is users, right? They're after basically MAUs, which is monthly active users. That's a stat that most internet companies live and die by, and I believe they're at 1 billion and climbing, and Google's much higher than that. So how they monetize them is a problem to solve later, really. For now, they just want as many people registered and using the services as possible. They will lose money as long as they need to, so long as they continue to gain active users. Venture capital will pour money in for as long as needed if they continue to add users, because eventually they'll be worth what Google's worth, right? And that's really the play. So
that's a really good perspective. Very interesting question.
So Stacy followed it up. So once I don't know that a winner's ever going to be quote unquote announced, but once it's obvious who won, yes, they'll start to figure out how they monetize the traffic most effectively, right? And that's the same thing with search. Remember, for the longest time we had search on Google, there was no ads. It was literally just search for 10 years. But
That must have been nice.
You don't remember that? Yeah, it was quite nice. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Don't make you feel old. Anyway, back to DeepMind in the video. It definitely lowers the barrier to producing high quality video content. That's not necessarily something you have to film yourself, but it is part of the paid Gemini suite. So, and in the higher tier of it too. Not they have 3 tiers: so the free, the middle, and then the higher. It's part of the higher one.
Generating video is extremely resource intensive, so I'm not surprised by that. So in an interesting piece of news on the agentic side of AI, right? So AI agents are starting to really be effective. There was a project called Project Agent Village. They let, I believe, 100 virtual AI agents. They each had their own PC. They were Claude and GPT 4.0 based. And they let them loose on the internet with a single goal: pick a charity and raise money. So they collectively had a conversation. They were all connected via a group chat. They had a conversation. They decided on the Helen Keller International as their charity on their own. And then they started to post memes, tweets, posts in forums to try to solicit donations. And after 4 weeks, they raised about $2,000, 2,000 real dollars from real donors, with no more guidance than that, like real basic level guidance. The only time humans got involved was for safety purposes. I don't know exactly what that means, but I think some of us can imagine, some of this posts could have been, questionable or things like that, or guiding people in the wrong way. So, like basically we've got kind of this emergent teamwork behavior amongst the models, amongst the agents. They're generating marketing collateral completely autonomously. Like this is really interesting, right? When you think about it, like they're like now 100 PCs, 100 agents, they made $2,000. They clearly, they spent more than they made, right? Yeah. But I think it's a really interesting kind of where we're starting to see how this, what this looks like in the real world. And I worry about, I think this is cool and interesting, but I worry about what it means for like the internet and for the content on the internet, right? I just feel like there's going to just eventually be so much AI generated content that none of the content's going to matter, right? And that's the only, like, it's a weird thing. It's a real fundamental shift in like how the internet is used. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over time.
Yeah, you and I have had conversations about this outside of here. I do think it'll go to a more community-centric type thing. So Reddit is really going to be big. Reddit's kind of already like recognized this, and they have some things in place to prevent AI from being utilized on the site. But of course, you can't, always stop someone from copying and pasting. But I do think it'll be community based, or we'll actually have to go outside and talk to each other again. So that could happen. Okay. And one last piece of news here, Rime AI, that's RIME AI, is a voice-based program. So it produces AI-generated voice that sounds very realistic. Like it can laugh. You can choose the tone if it's being like funny or if it's being casual, very professional.
You can like be sarcastic and use like you can sense different tones.
Like the tone, yes.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Yes. So they're purporting it as something that you could use maybe to do automated calls. I am actually not sure about the legality of using it for automated marketing. I don't think that's actually legal. I'm not entirely sure about that, but it could be a way to automate some customer service things in a way that feels more human than just your regular old bot, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm glad they spelled it RAME, because if they spelled it the other way, I wouldn't be able to find the website, because
That would never be, that word is my weakness.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
That rhythm.
you see, you see the extension of AI into new modalities, into new mediums, but not just like it's already been on voice, right? ChatGPT has voice, other AIs have voice, but now when you're getting into like inflections of voice, and I think that's there's a lot of communication that when like, what do they say? 90% of human communication has nothing to do with what the words you actually say. Like, it's body language, tone, and inflection, and so imagine, like, in a few years, maybe, like, and it's going to be important, because the way humans communicate, we're going to start to expect the robots of the future to have a semblance of, right? So them starting to have the ability to use tone of voice, to use body language to communicate with us is, I think for us to understand them, it's going to be important. So continue onward, forward. So, and I think the last item for the day, I think this is kind of interesting. Like, this is an actual peer-reviewed study, not some random blog post on the internet. Okay, peer-reviewed study. They found that ChatGPT 4.0 changes its opinion after you task it to research something. So they asked it for its opinions before it wrote an essay, and they asked it for its opinions after it wrote an essay, and its opinions changed. This mirrors a classic experiment done on free choice, which is basically considered an experiment done on human cognitive dissonance. And it really raises some interesting concepts, right? Like, this concept of, is AI at the edge of is there some bit of consciousness there? So I think that the illusions of choice, right? Also, like, as part of this, what they tested was, if it knew it had a choice in its opinions, it actually amplified the effect as well, which it also does in humans. So I think I don't know. Maybe there'll be AI social scientists in the future. Jordan, what do you think?
I think that is just not what AI should be doing. Social science at its core is human and should remain so. But I do think that AI should support those kinds of things. It can always support humans, and I do think that should be the focus, especially in fields where the humanity matters.
Well, yes. So I don't know if everyone just saw it or not, but Jordan just posted in chat, which is a super important concept, right? When you want to talk about biases in your chats, I'll let her explain it more, but basically this is something we use, and she gave a credit to it as well. Jordan, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so you'll notice if you're trying to brainstorm with AI, the thing just agrees with you. It just is like, yeah, you're so great, you're amazing. There was a problem that they actually did attempt to patch, but it's still so agreeable. And when people were like, oh, I use this to brainstorm, I didn't really think that it was a very effective use for it, because it just agreed with me. But I came across Ben Goody, who uses this as his prompt, and I hit a word count, so I did unfortunately have to put it in a couple of comments here. But I use this, and this gets it to challenge me and push back, and this has leveled up the output that it gives me when I brainstorm. I've used it to do content repositioning. I've used it to help me revamp how I work, schedule and time management wise. So this is probably my favorite prompt that I use of all time.
Do you use it as a prompt, or do you have it set in your customized ChatGPT instructions?
So I should probably put it in my customized ChatGPT. You kind of caught me there. I should put it in that, but I don't. I I've put it in GPTs that I make, and I also will use it as a prompt. I don't always want it to do this because I'm not going to lie to you. Sometimes I turn to ChatGPT for reassurance.
You're so good, Jordan. You're fantastic.
So,
Yeah, I have something similar. I use it in a project within ChatGPT. I jump into that project anytime I want to be challenged. Anytime I want to basically have my ideas picked and prodded at, as opposed to just like do the work I'm asking you to do. So I think it's a very powerful prompt helper, if you will. I would encourage everyone to set up some situation where you can collaborate with ChatGPT in this manner and see the difference, because this overrides the standard system prompt of ChatGPT being super helpful and super nice to you all the time.
well, that'll close us out for today. Thank you for joining us. If you were listening to this, the recording, or you were watching it live, and you're interested in the AI training that Mark mentioned, you can scan that QR code in the corner and it will take you to our webpage where you can learn more about the program itself. Or you can always reach out to Mark or I on LinkedIn for more information. We'll be back here next week with more updates, 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday.
Thanks, everyone.